Tyronne Stoudemire, Tyrone, Stoudemire, Stoudemire. And I am the new author of Diversity Done Best, and this is NDIGO Gumbo. First, let me share with you is that the book, Diversity Done Right, has made the top 100 of Amazon. The #1 diversity book, the #1 HR book, #3 on human psychology, and the new best release. I have been working in diversity, equity, inclusion for the last 30 years in corporate America. I have worked with not-for-profits, I have worked with Fortune 500 companies, coached CEOs in the face of diversity, equity, inclusion, and now is the time. I have attempted to just kind of stay under the radar. I wanted to just continue to teach and preach the gospel for DEI. And after the death and murder of George Floyd, what I discovered that many people just didn't know what they didn't know. People had the will to do the work, they lacked the skill. And as I talked to executives and CEOs around the world, determined that many just didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the awareness, right? They wanted to do things that were right, but didn't know what to do or how to do it. Study shows that more than 78% of white male CEOs don't even have black and brown people in their network, nor as friends, and many have not even brought them to their homes. They may have had a housekeeper who was Polish or a lawn keeper who was Latino, but didn't know their last names. So there's a deficit there. So I figured I was approached by Wiley's book publishing company to write a book. I initially told them no, right? Because I just didn't have the time, didn't have the capacity. 80% of my job is outside of Chicago, 40% is outside the country. I am constantly on the road, traveling, helping people to understand cultural differences. And so I just didn't know that I would have capacity at the time. They came back a second time and said, you really need to write. I had created a huge following in social media. I have over 30,000 people follow me on LinkedIn. Any post that I've posted has an average of 5,000 to 20,000 people responding to what I've been posting around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the content was there, the stories were there. I began to record my stories and share them. And I did an outline, gave them the outline. It says, you have got to write this book. So it really wasn't something that was not on my bucket list, wasn't the top 5 things I wanted to do, but I felt I was required because of what I have done over the 30 years to tell the story. If you ever want to end a dinner party early or end a meeting, bring up the word diversity. People will scatter like roaches. Nobody wants to say the wrong thing. Nobody wants to be labeled. Nobody wants to offend someone else. But I make it very simple. Diversity is a mix of difference. And inclusion is making that mix work, and equity is the goal. We all started this at a different place, a different time, a different journey. Some of us is kidnapped, hoodwinked, bamboozled, and brought to this country, not on our own will. Some came as immigrants. Some came fleeing from other countries. We all came here at a different point in a different time. How do we take diversity not as a problem to be solved, but a difference to leverage? The more diverse we are, the more diversity challenges we're going to have. Messages that were ingrained to us as children by our parents and our grandparents, we take into adulthood. I got most of us in this country, particularly blacks, have been taught by white people on who we are, where we came from, how we got here, right? We don't even sometimes know our own story and our own history. So it's important that we as black and brown people and women and people with disabilities and members from the GBLT, the gay, lesbian, transgender community have to tell their stories. I believe that culture is the driver for change. And cross-cultural competence is now one of the 10 top competencies required to do business in a global economy. I define cross-cultural competence as the ability to discern and take into account one's own and other worldviews with empathy and care to be able to see issues and resolve conflicts that maximize cultural differences to outperform the competition. I think we've looked at this very differently. Diversity is somewhat paralyzing, polarizing for people, them against us. We see it in our federal government, Democrats versus Republicans. They say they want the same thing, but they couldn't be more polarized with how we go after it and what we do. I think diversity is really the same thing. People are fearful of it. They don't know what it is. It's rooted in fear, right? So then I think that people look at it as a problem. I don't think this is a problem. I think it's a difference to leverage. When you look at the economics, you look at the research, corporations, all the research says that corporations are more profitable the more diverse they are. The consumers have changed, right? I give a couple of examples globally around diversity, equity, and inclusion. McDonald's has been one of the most celebrated companies for diversity and inclusion globally. I remember the days of Don Thompson, all the work that he did as a leader, CEO of McDonald's. However, when McDonald's went to India, the first McDonald's was burned down to the ground and experienced a $100 million lawsuit. It wasn't that they sold beef. They sold fish and chicken, but they fried their French fries in animal oil and lied about it. In order to regain the trust of the consumers in India, they had to lean deep into the culture. And the Indian culture is very family oriented. If you Google India, McDonald's in India, you will see McDonald's, a family restaurant. That logo don't exist anyplace else. In India, McDonald's, KFC, you have individuals who will have their weddings and wedding receptions in McDonald's and KFC because of the clean water, because of the running toilets, because of the affordable food. I could have never convinced my wife to have our wedding reception at McDonald's or my daughter, right? Neither one of them, that's not gonna happen. So again, when you look at how that's done, if you look at Gerber Foods, when Gerber Foods went to Africa and Japan, the consumer was horrified with the packaging. Beautiful blue-eyed baby, the fuzzy hair, Gerber's almost 100 years old. I mean, I grew up on Gerber's and I'm, pretty old here. And the consumer was horrified. Their response was, we don't eat our young. What's on the box is what's in the box. A can of corn, corn's in the can. A can of peas, peas in the can. The Americans must have chopped up babies and put them inside the boxes. Now, we may look at that and say how ignorant, but that's their interpretation, right? Chevrolet in this country went wild in the 70s and up into the 80s for the most part. But when they went to Spain, people didn't buy the car because Nova means won't go. Who buys a car that doesn't go? So we do these things to really trigger people to think about when you're expanding globally and you look at diversity globally, you have to think globally but behave regionally. The things that are consistent around the world is women. However, in Saudi Arabia, women was afforded the opportunity to drive just 5 years ago, let alone work. That was unheard of. In this country, when white men went to war, black and brown people went to war, women stepped up and began to run corporate America. And then freely gave it back when those men returned from the war. So again, diversity is it's just different for all of us. Moving to the 21st century, there's have you heard of the racist soap dispenser? The racist soap dispenser is as follows. This happened in Marriott and they got slammed by it. This wasn't a Marriott issue, it wasn't a Hilton issue, it wasn't a Hyatt issue, it wasn't a public bathroom, it was a manufacturer issue. They did not control for color. So there was an African-American male that goes into the washroom with a white guy. They test the soap dispenser. The black guy puts his hand under the soap, he gets no soap. He takes a piece of white paper towel, puts it on the dispenser, he gets soap. The white guy then puts his hand under, he gets soap. The black guy then puts his hand under it. Now, for those who are black and brown, we always thought it was empty. Oh, this is another empty, but it didn't control for color. So at the height of COVID, where it was critical for black and brown, for people in general to wash their hands, black and brown people could not wash their hands in public washrooms because of the soap dispenser, because it was not controlled for color. Tesla has lost millions upon millions of dollars because same scenario. They didn't control for color. They were inadvertently running over black and brown people because they thought it was dark. It was nighttime. So when you look at these things and you talk about diversity, if you're not leaning into your consumers, you leave a whole group of people behind. That's just on the product and services side. When you look at Fortune 500 companies and you only have, 3 black people as CEOs, are you suggesting that blacks can't lead? Black women hold more degrees than any other demographic, but yet they are not sitting in senior level roles. I think we may have 2 black females of Fortune 500 companies as sitting CEOs. Inclusion is making sure that everybody's represented, that everybody's heard, that we're consulting. I did some work with a prominent detergent company, and they were doing this, adding bleach to the detergent. We did a focus group of white women in the suburbs, and the image was a black male on a bed of white linen with a white T-shirt, and the child was on top of his chest with a white diaper, and he was patting the baby with a wedding ring. We shared it with the white women of the suburban communities. They was, oh, this is cute, this is nice, I like it. They cheer, cheer, cheer. When we shared that with black women, the women roared. We like clean clothes too. And my God, you now have a positive image of a black man taking care of his child, other like the image you have of him being taken to jail. So imagery is important. Increase sales by 80%. We all behave a certain way. Black folks only eat fried chicken, orange pop, and watermelon. Asian only eat white rice. Well, the tendency there is that white people typically don't care for their children. Find your way. I'm not going to pay your way. You're going to work hard like I did, which take their savings and vacation, or invest in art or do other types of things. So again, every culture has its own way and belief. It doesn't mean it's right or that it's wrong, but how they're going to show up is going to be very, very different. So when you look at the communications for the Asian family, it was more effective when you saw Mama sitting on the sofa and everybody's around Mama, and the headline is, what happens to Mama if you're not in this picture, had a different impact than a heterosexual white male and female walking on the sandy beach with their dog. So again, interpretation is important. Going back to Gruber Foods, interpretation, we don't eat our young. Equity is making sure that you're giving people the right tools. In my training or consulting or the work that I do a simple illustration to me. I have a family of 4. They're all riding a bike. They all got the same bike. They all got the same helmet. But the kid, who is 6 years old, can't touch the seat or the pedals. The mother's riding it very comfortably, but she's concerned about her child in front of her safety. And when she looked back, her husband is 6 feet tall. His knees are hitting the handlebars. He's bent over. He's uncomfortable. Who didn't want to go on the bike ride in the first place? And then, my God, her daughter's in a wheelchair, can't even get on the bike. But that's equality. I think a nationwide, we've done well with equality, but we now got to shift and meet people that are given the right size bike so they can ride the bike enjoyable. My book is intended for everybody. When I first started writing, I thought it was just for corporations, but as I began to write and listen to the stories and talk to the editors and some people who looked at the book, we all can benefit by reading it, because we all have to understand, how do we navigate through differences. One thing for me, doing this work for 30 years, I have a 21-year-old graduating from Hampton University in a few weeks. And it was important to me that she was able to speak more than one language. Because by the time she gets into the workforce, the dominant language in business will be Mandarin. She has studied Mandarin from kindergarten all the way through high school. That was a goal, that commitment that I made, and she's done well. In order for our youth and the next generation and generation after to work, they've got to be able to understand globally how we make money. They've got to understand how money is traded. They've got to understand about products and services. They've got to know more about diversity to be successful. So I think that this book can be used in colleges and universities. This book can be used in churches and not-for-profit organizations, because we all have to do this together. We all benefit by creating what I call mutual adaptation, learning from one another, growing together. It's all about me. It's all about you. It's all about us. It's how the book has been programmed.